in watching that movie and watching 688 and watching these Black women who came from nothing, not only meet expectations, but with nothing, they exceeded expectations. When did it become cool to not get a degree, to not get your diploma, to not create a family and stick with your family, to not aspire for greatness? Welcome to another episode of the That's Scary with Meloney P podcast. I'm your girl, Meloney P, and we're here to have a conversation. I just watched over the weekend, on Christmas to be exact, Tyler Perry's new movie, 688. And this is a good movie. It's more so a good movie because of the story behind the movie. Kerry Washington did an amazing job in this movie. Just to give you a background, almost a full century after the end of World War II, news stories about the quiet heroism of everyday individuals continue to come to light. Tyler Perry is tackling the war with his new film, The 688, the story of the war's only women Army Corps unit of color, which stars Kerry Washington, who wrote and directed the project and produced it alongside Nicole, blah, 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 blah. The 688 Central Postal Directory Battalion contributed to the war effort in a unique way by sorting through a 3-year backlog of mail that hadn't been delivered to American soldiers far from home in the face of discrimination and a vast, unfamiliar country divided by global conflict. These 855 African-American women brought hope to the front lines. A lot of people did not want us to succeed, says Adams, who Kerry Washington portrayed in the film, and they had a lot to prove. Now, you can watch the film for yourself to get a full background of this movie, but here is where it went for me. I was having a conversation with one of my best friends back home during the holidays, and we were talking about back in the day. You know, my mom was born in 1946. His mom was born, 45, 44. And these are Black people who have experienced a portion of life that we, God willing, have never nor will ever experience. And the topic and the conversation came up about segregation and how it was being a Black person in the 50s and 60s, being in a segregated school versus fast forward and being a Black person in a non-segregated school. And it made me ask the question, were we better off in segregation? Now, obviously, I feel like the answer to that is no. But it took me back to the Black senator who was, pro-Trump, who was saying that we were better, Black people were better in the Jim Crow era, which again, no, we weren't. But listening to my mom talk about the sense of community that Black people had, and just to be more specific, going to a school where you had Black teachers, Black principal, Black programs, there was more of a sense of pride. There was a little bit more respect. There was a little bit more safety being around people who actually truly wanted you to succeed. My mom was telling me about all these different programs and pageants she was in, the Battalion, the Jabberwock, this, that, and the third, all these different things that as a Black young lady in the 60s, you felt a sense of pride to be in these programs. Black people, the Black faculty and administration of these segregated schools, they wanted you to succeed. They knew the importance of finding a trade, learning, teaching was so important, and they gave their best. And that produced a lot of great Black people as our parents in their age. And then I guess to tie this into 688, when I was watching the movie and I was watching how these Black women faced so many odds, Like when you see this movie and you see the odds that were stacked against them, not only odds stacked against them, but people who were gunning, white people who were gunning for them to fail, white people who were trying to put obstacles in their way for them to fail, black women in that day and time. And they not only did not fail, they exceeded expectations. And they exceeded expectations with little to nothing. So think about that, right? They had each other, they had a sense of community, and then fast forward to 2024, 2023. And it makes me ask the question, when did it become a thing for Black people to be okay with being mediocre? When did it become cool to not get a degree, to not get your diploma, to not to not create a family and stick with your family, to not aspire for greatness? When did it become cool to call women bitches and hoes and to boast the fact that you had a white wife? What the fuck? And it makes me think, and excuse me for cursing, but it just makes me think, how? In watching that movie and watching 688 and watching these Black women who came from nothing, again, not only meet expectations, but with nothing, no heat, no nothing, they exceeded expectations. And again, the parallel to this is that conversation that I had with my mom over the holiday, right? About what it was like going to school in a segregated space, only having Black teachers, having a Black principal. My mom was telling me how there would be certain protests, right? And the principal, the teachers would allow the students, if they wanted to go protest, but they would always mark them present. They turned kind of a blind eye to that. Just the sense of community and the sense of belonging and not feeling inferior. Now, again, to keep it a buck, she did say that we have our own inferiority complexes within our community with the brown paper bag situation, colorism, this, that, and the third. But it just makes you pose the question, when did it become okay for Black people to be mediocre? If Black people were able in the 50s and 60s to build communities, to build banks, to build schools, to build, whole functioning communities, doctors' offices. You think about the 1898 race riots in Wilmington. You think about what's that place? Oh, the Black Wall Street. You think about all, and these are just two examples out of many. You think about Rosewood. You think about all these different times in history where white people were lynching Black people, killing them, imprisoning them, all these things, but we were still able to grow full communities, raise our own farms, produce our own food, produce these fully functioning communities to the point to where, if you look in history, if you look at the 1898 race riots of Wilmington, where I'm from, if you look at those race riots and for there to be these fully functioning communities, but then also at the end of every 1898, there were white people who came and burned it down. If we could create whole functioning communities with all these things with nothing, why is it so hard for us to do it now? If we can create these successful Black communities with nothing, why is it so hard for us to create it now with everything? And I will say my answer to that for my own self, just in just conversation and just thinking, is that I do feel like we can be our own worst enemies. we do have a crab in a barrel mentality. I think that some of our oppressors put a big initiative to remove the Black man from the home and to make him feel less than. And I think that that has more of an effect than we really know. When we were building these communities and creating these banks and these hospitals and these grocery stores and all these Black owned this and that, at the head of a lot of that were Black men. And I always say, I'll say it 1,000 times again and again and again, I do believe in the hierarchy of men being the head. Black men being leaders and providers of the community. And so if they are our leaders and, they are being broken down in a sense, it's difficult. But is it? Is it difficult? Especially looking at our future with our new president, there's a lot of uncertainty, especially within the middle class. And this is arguably a time when community, stick togetherness is more important than ever. But I don't know. I'm gonna go into this. I have some really cool things coming down for Black History Month in February, as it relates to this conversation that I had with my mom and with my friends back home, and as it relates to this movie. But I will say that I will encourage you to watch 6888. I was able to watch the movie in its entirety, and then also go back and watch some of the actual the real life documentaries and interviews of some of the some of the Black women who were actually in 6888, and it's just so inspiring. And I feel like with all this conversation of taking and removing Black history out of our schools, it just makes you look at it differently. It makes you look at it differently because I've always been very interested and very interested in Black history and understanding slavery and understanding, my parents and what they went through, and sitting in the back of the bus and sitting in the back of the restaurants and not drinking out of the water fountains. It makes me personally have a sense of pride, a sense of respect for where my parents came, and wanting to do better and wanting to teach my children about where we came from and why we should move the way we should move now because of the sacrifices of our ancestors, the sacrifices of our parents. So it's so important with these stupid agendas to not only take Black history out of the schools, but fine you if you are teaching anything about Black history. So we're at a very, very delicate, pivotal time in our history where we need to understand, listen, respect the voices of our ancestors, understand these stories of the 6888. I had never even heard of the 6888 until I saw this movie, and it makes me just want to understand more. It makes me want to talk to my parents, people like older people. It makes me want to talk to older people and hear and document their stories, because if they're trying to take Black history out of the schools now, the people who hold the history that are left, they will not be here in the future. So the 6888 of it all, those interviews, those documentaries, talking to our parents, understanding, their struggle, understanding what they went through. I never understood why my mom made such a big deal if she went to a restaurant and they sat her close to the back. But hearing her stories and hearing what she went through and hearing how, she stood up for herself, I'm just not really understanding. Okay, now I can understand more of why she doesn't like that, even though it's uncomfortable for us to be around, I get it, because she grew up in a time where she had to work in a white person's home as a teenager. And, she was telling me the story about she got fired from a job because she wouldn't say yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am to a white lady. You know what I'm saying? And so this is someone who is 77 years young, and she's still here. She still has the story. She still has the story to tell. And if they're trying to wipe out Black history, it's only up to us to have that history, and tell our children document it for ourselves and move accordingly. But it just begs to ask the question, when the hell did it become cool to be mediocre as a Black person? If we can build and grow and thrive with not only nothing, but every odd against us, why the fuck are we not building and thriving with every opportunity that we have? Why are we fighting each other? It's just crazy to me. Anyway, y'all, listen, let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you've seen Tyler Perry's 6888 movie. It was really good. I will say the whole love story of it all, I didn't get it. I thought it was a waste. I thought I was watching the wrong movie when I saw that, because a lot of that shit was not realistic. A white boy driving around a Black girl. You'll see it when you watch it. But that part to me was kind of strange, and it was a waste of just a storyline. But the movie in itself was great, and I'm appreciative to Tyler Perry for keeping our history, for once not having a movie about a Black man beating up a Black woman and all this Medea stuff, but, pushing the story. Let me know your thoughts below, and I will see you in the next episode.
There's the 6888, more than 800 African American women marching through Birmingham in 1945. Their mission, to sort out a mountain of mail piling up for the frontline troops.
It was very, very important. Very important. And sometimes we would have groups of women working all night long.
Elizabeth Barker Johnson is 98 years old. In 1945, she was 25 and working in temporary barracks at the King Edward School, Edgbaston. Nearly all these women had never left the United States before the war. They might not have fought battles against the enemy, but they overcame racism and sexism long before those issues became popular causes.